And we are live. Welcome back to episode 1, season 2 of Movie Guys Improvise, the MGI podcast you were listening to, Faerhad Targaryen.
And your boy, Al Rogers.
Last episode, the very last episode of season 1, we were talking about the Dark Knight Rises, a superhero movie that I was obsessed with way back when we were in college. Now,
and don't forget, we did our season 1 overview.
Yep, the recap. Let's check that out as well. It's exciting now. We are finally at season 2, 10 episodes already, in episode 11, episode 1 of season 2, Cloud Atlas. Now, Al, this was another blind suggestion for you, right?
It was.
I see.
And, oh man, I think once we get into it, you'll start saying, never again, never again.
I think I agree with you there too, unfortunately. But it was interesting to me because off the record just now, you told me, and even in the season 1 recap, you were like, "What? It's on Netflix?" I thought you suggested it to me because it was on Netflix. But you did you have the DVD already, or did you buy the DVD for the blind suggestion for this podcast?
Right, and that's what happened. So I went out, I bought this DVD, and I thought, hey, let's go and watch this movie that I just bought so that we could both review it. And not a very good choice, huh?
Well, it wasn't. I guess I should just ask you, what makes you say that it was not a very good choice?
It's not what I expected.
It's not what you expected?
It's not what I expected at all. From the trailers on YouTube. So I did have a little bit of exposure. So I got to see some of the trailers on YouTube, and I thought it was going to be this masterful interweaving of stories. There are many movies that have done this multiple narratives weaved into one type of deal. And that's generally kind of sort of what you get from it. But it failed to meet the expectations set forth by the trailers.
So that's the thing, right? I think the movie was shooting for being a masterful story. In fact, it was based off of a book. I don't know if you knew that when you suggested it. There was a book in 2004 that came out called Cloud Atlas, and I'm pretty sure it may have even been part of a series. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but it was a book first. Cloud Atlas was a book. Now, before we go any further, I guess we should say spoiler warning for Cloud Atlas, even though this movie is 7 years old, came out in 2012. So this point forward, we were going to talk about everything going on in the movie from beginning to end, as much as we can in a condensed 45-minute podcast episode, because this movie was long, right? This was like almost 3 hours long, I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, it was a long movie, and it was not Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh man! All right, so let's go through this. So multiple timelines, right? I'm gonna read to you. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 timelines in total. The first timeline is 1849, the Pacific Islands, and then there's Cambridge, Edinburgh in 1936. Then there's San Francisco in 1973. Then there's London in 2012, which I guess is the contemporary timeline, because that's when the movie came out. Then there's Neosoul, 2144, or 2144, I guess that's the right way of saying it. And then there's one even further into the future, which may not even take place on planet Earth anymore. Big Isle, 106 Winters After the Fall, in 2321. At least that's what Wikipedia says now. The interesting thing about all these different timelines are that each one has a main character. Now, all of there's an ensemble cast, but in the ensemble cast, each timeline has one main character each. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, my two favorite characters, I guess, would be the Tom Hanks character and the Halle Berry character. And they're also two of the best actors in this whole movie.
Well, in which timeline?
So my favorite Halle Berry timeline was the 1973 timeline, where she's a reporter going by the name Louisa Ray. So that was my favorite there. I also really liked her in the Big Isle timeline, which was 2321. And my favorite for Tom Hanks might be when he was playing Zachary in the 2321 timeline. So do you have a favorite, or was the movie so all over the place that you couldn't even like?
So I think it's important that we explain to the audience that multiple actors playing multiple roles
Yes.
Throughout these multiple timelines.
Yes.
So it kind of caught me off guard when they first introduced Neosoul era, and you have some of these characters who I'm not sure if it was through CGI or if it was just via makeup and where they use that plastic to put artificial ears or things like that, where these very American-looking characters are made to look like futuristic Korean people.
Yeah, East Asians. Yeah,
totally threw me off guard.
I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna bring that up at some point during this podcast episode. I know those types of controversies aren't really something that you care about that much, but I did look into it because that did kind of bother me. So there's a term called blackface, which is when usually a white actor alters his appearance to have the appearance of a black person. There's also a term called yellowface, where a non-Asian or usually a white actor alters his appearance to look Asian or East Asian. This movie had a bit of controversy behind it for doing that, but the people behind the movie, the directors, responded to it saying that the actors portrayed multiple, races and nationalities to show the continuity of souls. And I guess I understand that because I watched the movie, but it still was, weird and kind of uncomfortable that they did that. They could have just had the soul of that person, the futuristic version. So the name of in the Neosoul 2144 timeline, the white actor, his name is Jim Sturgis, and in the Neosoul timeline, his name is Hei Ju Chang. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So they made him look East Asian to fit in with the Korean timeline. I don't see why they couldn't just have him, why his soul had to also, how his race had to be in line with his soul. They could have just had him also just be a Caucasian person being in Neosoul. And he wasn't the only actor they did that with. They also did that with Hugo Weaving's character. He wasn't that important in the Neosoul timeline, but they also altered his appearance as well as several other characters. So that's just my whole opinion on the matter. And they did it multiple times, not just in the Neosoul timeline.
I think this is a first film that I've been exposed to, as you say, Yellowface. I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Typically, anytime there are Asian characters, it's usually played by an Asian actor.
Yeah.
So I've never seen that, but it was just an interesting thing. Okay, do you want to run us through some of the plot of the movie? Like the plot is all over the place.
Yeah.
So if this podcast doesn't make sense, because a little bit of the movie is difficult to put together in a fashion that makes sense.
Okay. So let's start off with the first time, chronologically speaking, let's start off with the first timeline, which is the Pacific Islands in 1849. Jim Sturgis plays Adam Ewing, who is a lawyer, and Tom Hanks is actually the villain in that time frame, plays Dr. Henry Goose. This was an interesting one because in the beginning of this timeline, we see Adam Ewing as a lawyer. He's going through what I guess is a slave camp. He witnesses one slave being constantly whipped, and he becomes unconscious. I thought he just became unconscious because of the combination of the shock of seeing what was happening and the heat. But he wakes up in a hospital bed with Dr. Henry Goose, Tom Hanks' character, who says, "Oh, you have like a ringworm or something, but not to worry, sir. I got you because I'm a doctor and I'll take care of you." later on in this storyline, it's implied that Dr. Henry Goose was feeding him bad medicine to make him sicker and sicker so that he could eventually rob him. Do you remember that? Like on the boat, like how he basically admits to him that, oh, I just wanted to kill you. Why? Because I want your gold. You remember that?
Yeah.
So
he was being fed poison. So one thing that I didn't pay too much attention to is how the actions of the Tom Hanks character evolves through the different eras. So I will be asking your opinion on that as to how you saw the Tom Hanks actor, his soul, how you saw that evolving through the eras, because that's not something I paid very close attention to. But yeah, what a jerk. What a jerk of a character.
Evil. Yeah, he was evil, basically.
Yeah. He's trying to kill him for money.
Yeah, for gold, yeah. So
but hey, I'm your friend. I'm here to help you. I'm the doctor. Jerk.
The strange thing is that the movie does have a good message by the end of it, and I'll get to it later on, because we don't want to turn this into a whole plot summary, but the Tom Hanks character, his character's soul, it kind of shows inconsistencies, because he wasn't malevolent like that in every single timeline. That was the only timeline where he was evil. And in terms of, his soul, they implied in another storyline, I think the 1973 storyline, where Tom Hanks is a scientist going by the name of Isaac Sachs, and he's killed. He's killed by what looks like a terrorist attack because he's on a plane and there's a suitcase on the plane that blows up. And he met Louisa Ray, who is Halle Berry's character in the 1973 storyline, and she's investigating basically what the movie is portraying, which is all these different storylines, right? She's investigating the different storylines and how these things are converging, and the powers that be try to kill her for it, right? Right before Dr. Isaac Sachs died, he's giving this monologue to the audience that he thinks he's falling in love with Louisa. And that was interesting to me because, are they keeping consistent that with each of these timelines, the people that fall in love are always meant to fall in love? Because Tom Hanks as Zachary in the 2321 storyline, which I don't even think that takes place on Earth, falls in love with the Halle Berry character, whose name I think is Meranim. They fall in love there too. And Jim Sturgis's character in the Neosoul timeline also falls in love with Doudna Bay's character in the 1849 storyline, which is Tilda Ewing. Also, I guess we can call that what Doudna Bay has to do as Whiteface, because it's the same actress, but they make her look Caucasian. They change her eye color, they change her hair color, they gave her freckles to make her appear as a white person.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
I didn't even notice that was her.
Yeah, bro. So, are they just?
Are you serious?
Yes, I am serious. So,
wow.
Were they?
No, really. I got it. I did not notice that.
Yeah, man.
How could I have missed that?
I didn't notice that for the 1970. They do it with Doudna. They do they do that twice with her. They do that with her in the 1849 storyline and in the 1973 storyline. You remember that time where Halle Berry and Keith David's character, Joe Napier, they're running from Hugo Weaving's character, and they go into this the back of this shop, I guess, or this factory.
Wow.
Yeah. That lady, that Latina lady, is also Doudna Bay. They make her appear as a Mexican woman. Literally, that's what it says on Wikipedia. She's known as Mexican woman. So they changed the appearance twice. Yeah, but anyway.
They fooled me.
Yeah. My point with all this is, are they just trying to show that for Jim Sturgis and Doudna Bay's character, are they just star-crossed lovers, where in every single storyline they're not the main characters in every storyline, but are they just showing that they're star-crossed lovers and that they're always going to end up together? Or is it just a coincidence that in two storylines they do fall in love and are together like that? Because with Tom Hanks and Halle Berry, they fall in love in the 2321 storyline. Tom Hanks fell in love with her in the 1973 storyline, or at least he thought he was, Isaac Sachs. But Tom Hanks is evil in the 1849 storyline, and Halle Berry, I don't think she ever crossed paths with him in the 1849 storyline. So is it just in these two storylines that Tom Hanks and Halle Berry are in love? And is it supposed to be implied that it's only the two storylines for Adam Ewing and Doudna Bay's characters, or is it supposed to imply that they're always falling in love? I don't even like, this is confusing just to explain. So I don't know if you're understanding everything that I'm explaining to you.
That's wow. I'm still blown away.
Yeah.
I didn't notice Mexican Halle Berry. That's
No. It's not Mexican Halle Berry. It's Mexican Doudna Bay. The South Korean actress. Yeah, they made her.
I'm talking about. So when Halle Berry plays Louisa Ray.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that was her.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, no, but she looks exactly like herself though. They didn't. I don't think they altered her appearance.
No, she has orange hair and she's practically white.
Not in the 1973 storyline though. I know what you're talking about. Like, but that's not the 1973 storyline.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, not in 1973.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yeah. I didn't notice that at first.
Not Lisa Ray when she plays Joe Costa.
Yes. So yeah,
she plays Joe Costa.
I'm with you. I'm with you there. I also didn't notice that they altered Halle Berry's appearance there. So they're kind of all over the place with that, right? So that was just weird. Now, the moral of this movie is kind of a good message. Like, there's a quote at the end of the movie. So for Jim Sturgis's main storyline, which is 1849, Adam Ewing as a lawyer who helps a runaway slave, right? Because he sees the horrors of slavery and whatnot. He at the end of the movie, he visits his father-in-law's house, the Hugo Weaving character Haskell Moore, and he basically rejects the idea of slavery. And Hugo Weaving goes, like, "Are you crazy? Are you mad? Like, boy, there is an established set of rules for this world, and if you don't follow those rules, then there's going to be chaos." Now, that's not exactly what he said, but he's basically saying, don't mess with the way things are. That's basically what he's saying. And then he says, he makes this quote, "No matter what you do with the ocean, you will never amount to anything but a single drop in a limitless ocean." And then Adam Ewing goes, "What is an ocean but a multitude of drops?" So the movie sends a good message to the audience in that, don't try to fight what you think is your predestination, because you never know what the future has in store. So just because things are the way they are, and doesn't mean that it's right, you have the power to make a difference. I guess that's kind of what the movie's...
Yeah, I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah. But the movie didn't have to be 3 hours long with actors changing their appearance completely to even appear as a different race. The movie didn't necessarily have to do all that. Maybe a story like this would have been better off as a television series instead of a movie, because as a movie it kind of flopped. I mean, I think it may have broken even. According to Wikipedia, the budget was 146 million and a net of 128 million. And the box office, it made it to 130 million. So, I mean, if I'm reading that correctly, the movie did kind of flop. And honestly, man, I'm not surprised. This movie is close to the length of Avengers Endgame. And it was kind of, for me, I'm sad to say, it was kind of boring. It wasn't terrible. I would say, I may disagree with you in that it is worth watching.
I think the movie, it just tried to do too much in too little time. Like, I feel like this movie really had 6 hours of content that was somehow trimmed down and shortened to 3 hours. That, and there were many times where I wanted to focus on a single story, and the movie would rip you from one story and drop you into another. And the transitions were seamless, but I wanted to focus on one story because some of the stories were very compelling to me. And just feel like I didn't have the opportunity to focus on a single story. And so, to a certain extent, I agree with you that a series perhaps is the right way to do it.
So I understand what you mean when you're saying you're like basically that you're invested in one storyline, and even though the transition was seamless, you were invested in that storyline and you just wanted to know what happened next there. So I think part of the reason they cut around was because the stories matched up in terms of beats, and that's why they had to like switch from this one to the next one. So can you give me an example of one storyline that you were really into and wanted to see what happened next? Like which scene or what developing story?
When they first introduced Neosoul into the movie, you have these vacant rooms that are made to look like something else via virtual reality. So as they introduced that concept, I was hooked. I wanted to see more of Neosoul. I wanted to see what other shops were run, how those other shops were run, because it wasn't just this little restaurant that had servers that were scantily dressed and having people come through and look at these virtual worlds, right? There's more to Neosoul that I don't think was explored adequately because there just wasn't enough time to do it. So I'd say that's one example. And then the investigative story of the nuclear power plant and all the stuff that happens after that investigation. What is the aftermath of that? And then if you look at the futuristic timeline of Halle Berry, and she's got all this amazing technology, what led to the poisoning of the world?
Yeah,
things like that.
Now that you mention it, I feel like how you were explaining how they were introducing Neosoul and that restaurant with those the Korean women who were waitresses or who were being like, I don't know, like kind of sexually harassed. One of them punches a patron and then gets murdered for it by the restaurant owner. I feel like you could make a whole movie based off of just Neosoul. That could have been a whole movie in and of itself. Right?
I agree.
So, which is why, and this plays back into how this could have been like a television series, like a rated R television series instead of being a 3-hour long movie that just honestly wasn't that good. So an interesting thing though is that the Hugo Weaving character who plays a hitman in I think another series, he maybe not, he may not have even been in this series, but he was like assassinated. So James Darcy's character in the 1936 storyline and the 1973 storyline plays a character named Rufus Sixsmith. Looking on Wikipedia, it may even be the same character because it says for the 1936 storyline he's young Rufus Sixsmith, and then in the 1973 storyline he's the old Rufus Sixsmith. And Sixsmith is the character who gets stuck in an elevator with Louisa Ray. You know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that he's playing the same character in both storylines. So not only is the soul the same, but the body is the same because it's quite literally the same exact character, in both places. So, being that it's the same person and perhaps he knows, or he has some sort of knowledge of these storylines, that he gets assassinated for it. And that is what, that's part of what Louisa is investigating, right? Because they talk for a little bit and Louisa tries to go and meet him in a hotel room and then sees that it looks like he's suicided, but she's smarter than that. She knows that something is going on here. But that's just I guess an interesting thing to think about in the complexity that this whole movie is. So here's another thing that I wanted to ask you. So for the 23-21 storyline, which is I guess on a desolate place or an island from a planet far away from Earth. Zachary, who is
okay. Although we can't confirm that it's not Earth, I'm pretty sure it is Earth. Pretty sure it's Earth.
Well, at the very end of the movie, we see a shot of 2 different moons, so I feel like it could be a different planet.
Well, they were able to send for a distress call and leave that planet they were on. But then you're right. You know, when they look up into the sky, it doesn't make sense.
Right. So yeah, maybe it's that most of it took place on on Earth, and then they moved to a different planet. You could be right about that. I don't know. I'd have to watch the movie again to be sure, but I really don't want to spend that 3 hours all over again.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure actually. I don't know. But what I was getting at though is that for that storyline in 2321, Zachary, which is Tom Hanks' character, he's introduced as he seems like he's a bodyguard for other characters on that island, and they're attacked by cannibals. And the father of one of the children the child that's there is yelling out his name, Zachary, Zachary, for like help or for protection. And then there's this goblin-looking character that whispers in Tom Hanks' ear, saying, "Oh, you're safe here. You're safe here. You know, just let them die. There'll be dinner for these cannibals later on." That goblin-looking character, is he one of the characters in the several different timelines, or is he just one little thing about the Zachary character in the 2321 storyline?
Yeah, I don't think that goblin character was tied to anyone in particular.
That was really weird, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. There was, it was a one-off thing, and it was kind of weird, but at the same time, I think it was there as a narrative plot to kind of guide you through just the thoughts of this strange, savage-like man in the future.
But it only, so that's with the Tom Hanks character Zachary, and that goblin mental creature person character is only in that version of Tom Hanks. It's not in any of the other versions. And as uncivilized as the Zachary character is, I think the cannibals are even more savage than he is. They establish that they're kind of civilized because they live together in their own little group, but their English was really weird,
Okay. So let me ask you this: Are you sure? Are you sure that mental demon goblin thing only affected Tom Hanks' character during that timeline?
No.
Because if you look at the timeline where he is an evil man,
yes,
poisoning his friend, although he's not shown there. I mean, all the signs say that his conscience is of an evil person, and that he is,
Dr. Henry Roos. Yeah, it's true. It's definitely possible that the Goblin character is in all of Tom Hanks' storylines, but we never see him. But he's not. That's the only timeline where he's evil. The only other timeline where he plays
there was another, I think, where he doesn't.
Oh.
I don't think that timeline is played by Tom Hanks because he's a much older man. But the what do you call it? The musician, the guy who became reclusive and didn't want to compose new music until this young guy shows up to his house. Yeah. I think that character was supposed to be Tom Hanks in that timeline.
Well, actually, now that I was thinking about it, like I didn't mean to cut you off just now, but there actually was another timeline where Tom Hanks may not have been evil, but kind of like a criminal. He played like this Scottish or Irish sounding book author, and he throws this critic off of the ledge of a building at a party. Yeah, and so he wasn't a main character.
Rufus, he plays Rufus. Is it Rufus? No, Cavendish.
Yes, Cavendish. That's the one. I think. Yeah. Well, Cavendish is a character. That's Hugh Grant's character. Yeah. is Cavendish.
Okay.
Yeah, who may have been the person who Tom Hanks brutally murders in that way. But so yeah, this is all just going back to that Goblin character. Maybe he was like that's so. My whole point was that was the only other time that Tom Hanks was kind of like an evil person. He wasn't really evil in the 1973 storyline. He was killed off earlier on. Now, but you're right. It could definitely be possible that the Goblin character was there in all of them. We just didn't see him. Just not much of an indication for it now. So who was that character you were talking about just now? Who was a musician who becomes kind of like a recluse?
I'm looking for him right now.
Cavendish. So Cavendish is the name of the character played by Jim Broadbent in the 2012 storyline in London. His name is Timothy Cavendish. Are you talking about the character who gets stuck in this retirement home and
he's
desperately trying to escape?
He's the old guy.
Yeah.
The old guy that Jacosta hangs out with. What is 6 months? Hold on. There are just so many characters.
Yeah, man.
Jeez. What is his name? The character I'm talking about is played by Jim Broadbent.
Yeah.
And he is like a music composer of some sort. Yeah. Him. That's what I'm talking about. Is that supposed to be Tom Hanks?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, the name of that character in the 1936 storyline, that character's name is Vivian Ayres, and Tom Hanks, he's a hotel manager in that storyline. So I'm just looking at Wikipedia.
Right, he is.
Yeah.
He is. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep. A very greedy and almost evil-like hotelman, right?
So. Yeah, basically. So for that storyline, now that we're on the topic of it, the main character of that storyline is played by Ben Whishaw, Robert Frobisher, who composes a piece of music who Jim Broadbent's character Ayres. I guess he hears it in his dream, he says, but Frobisher was doing it late at night, and so he was saying, "Oh, maybe this just leaked into your dream." And once it's completed, though, like they argue about something, and Frobisher says he's gonna leave. He takes the gun, and Jim Broadbent goes, "Oh, you're not gonna shoot me. You're kind or cowards or something like that." But he ends up just shooting him. Feels no remorse. Takes the notes for the music, and then just leaves. By the end of his storyline, though, he kills himself. Why does he like? Do you know? Like, could you figure out why?
So that didn't make any sense to me. I think, so first I'll go into why it didn't make sense to me. Suicide generally doesn't make any sense to me. But beyond that, I couldn't put myself into the character's mind to fully understand why he would commit suicide.
So
because he had somebody who clearly loved him.
Yeah.
He had somebody. And I think that was the extent of it. There was still someone in his life that really cared about him. So the fact that he wanted to commit suicide did not make sense to me.
Maybe.
However.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Part of the reason why I think he committed suicide is because when he left the music composer's house, he had a tarnished reputation. He had shot the man he was working with. So his outlook on life was very low. After he finished composing that song, he would be dead broke and have nothing else to really look forward to. So he saw the end of everything he's worked so hard for. So that was the dead end for him.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
That makes sense actually. Like I was thinking about like yes, it is like it was shown that he did have a lover. So there was someone out there that cared about it, that mourned for his loss as soon as his dead body was discovered. Um, and there's also just the fact that the police were after him. I thought maybe that had something to do with it too, about why he decided to off himself. So but that storyline, I don't know how it mixes in with all the other. I mean, I guess because of the character who was his lover was the young Rufus Sixsmith, and that's the same character who was later. Oh, so that character. So remember how Frobisher suicides by putting a pistol in his mouth and pulling the trigger, right? And then his lover, young Rufus Sixsmith, discovers his body and how he just killed himself. When that character grows older, the old Rufus Sixsmith is murdered, executed in the exact same way. Remember, the old Rufus Sixsmith goes back to his hotel room. Yeah, and gets has a pistol put in his mouth, and the trigger is pulled. Killed the exact same way. And I don't know if that's supposed to be some twisted evil poetry or something, but it could be that this character Sixsmith spends the rest of his life trying to investigate, timelines and stuff. I don't know. I would have to look up more, in-depth analysis YouTube videos about this movie, and perhaps I will one day if I do ever feel like, because some people say, because some people love this movie. Some people say, 20, 30 years from now, this is going to be seen as the 2001 Space Odyssey classic or something like that. I don't know. But since
doubt it.
Yeah, right now I'm definitely doubting it. And since we are nearing the end of this episode, I guess it's that time again to go into ratings. I thought this movie was okay. I didn't hate it. I really didn't like it that much though. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 6 out of 10. What would you say?
I'm just gonna outright apologize for recommending this.
Oh my god.
Honestly, I watched it, and as I was watching it, I struggled to really watch all of it. I was hoping it would end. So the saving grace was that the sci-fi aspect of it really caught my attention with Neosoul. But even then, that's not gonna make this movie that much better. I give it a 4 out of 10.
Damn, that's your record low. It's the lowest you've ever gone is 4. Like, wow. Okay.
Hopefully, I don't choose another movie that's this bad.
Oh man, I mean, I generally say that 5 out of 10 is the average, so I'm slightly above average, and you're putting this below average. Like, wow, it's that bad. All right, fair enough. I mean, that's that with Cloud Atlas. Let's just finish that off there and never look back.
Never look back.
So I want to talk to you a little bit right now about what I recommended for the next episode. I'm fascinated with the topic of just prehistory, like prehistoric stuff, humans and how we evolved and adapted, just evolution in general. So I wanted to recommend the 2011 documentary Neanderthal. Okay. So this is a documentary.
And where can our viewers or listeners watch this?
YouTube. There's actually there are videos of it right on YouTube, so it's easily accessible just like that. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about in the next episode. So yeah, I mean, even though this movie was kind of a mess, it was still kind of fun talking about it for this whole 40 minutes or so. So yeah, I guess that's that for this episode of Movie Guys Improvise. You have been listening to Faerhad Targaryen
and your boy Al Rogers.
So stay tuned for our next episode. Other than that, for now, thank you all for listening to us, and have a great rest of your Sunday afternoon. Take care.
Peace.